The candles at Le Cirque restaurant cast a warm glow across polished silverware and crystal glasses. Ethan Sinclair adjusted his expensive tie, barely listening to his business partner drone on about their latest merger. At 45, he had everything money could buy. A penthouse overlooking Central Park, a fleet of luxury cars, and more zeros in his bank account than he could count. But tonight, something felt off. Maybe it was the champagne, or maybe it was the empty chair across from him where Caroline should have been sitting. His girlfriend of 2 years had called earlier to cancel, something about a charity event she couldn't miss. Ethan didn't mind. Their relationship was comfortable, convenient, just like everything else in his life. Earth to Ethan? Jack Matthews waved his hand in front of Ethan's face. "You haven't heard a word I've said, have you?" Ethan opened his mouth to answer, but the words died in his throat. Across the restaurant, a woman was being seated with 3 children. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, just like it used to 10 years ago. Just like when she was his wife, Lena. The fork slipped from his fingers, clattering against fine china. It couldn't be her. Lena had disappeared from his life a decade ago, leaving nothing but signed divorce papers and a hole in his heart he'd never managed to fill. But it was her. She looked exactly the same, maybe even more beautiful than he remembered. She was helping a young girl into her chair, a girl who couldn't be more than 9 or 10. Next to her, 2 boys who looked about 7 or 8 were already fighting over the bread basket. Ethan's heart stopped. The timeline, the familiar green eyes, the way the older boy's dimples appeared when he smiled, just like his own. "I need to go," he said, standing up so abruptly his chair scraped against the floor. Jack called after him, but Ethan was already moving across the restaurant, his legs carrying him forward even as his mind reeled. Lena saw him coming. Her face went pale and she gripped the edge of the table. The children looked up, curious about the stranger approaching their table. "Lena," Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "Mommy, who's that?" the little girl asked, and Ethan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. She had his mother's nose. "Nobody, sweetie," Lena said quickly, but her hands were shaking. "Why don't you 3 go wash up before dinner?" The children slid from their chairs, but Ethan couldn't take his eyes off them. The twins, they had to be twins, had his height, his build. And the girl, she was the spitting image of Lena, but with his eyes. "How old are they?" he demanded, as soon as the children were out of earshot. Lena stood up, grabbing her purse. "We need to leave. How old are they, Lena?" 9 and 7, she whispered, not meeting his eyes. The math hit him like a freight train. 9 years ago, they were still married. 7 years ago, she had just filed for divorce. "They're mine," he said. "It wasn't a question. Stay away from us, Ethan." Lena's voice was steel, but he could hear the fear underneath. "Stay away. Those are my children, children I never knew existed." His voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. "Lower your voice," Lena hissed. "You'll scare them." "Scare them? I don't even know their names. My own children, and I don't know their names." "That's not my fault." Tears welled in Lena's eyes. "I tried to tell you. God, I tried so many times. What are you talking about? You disappeared. You filed for divorce and vanished. I called you. I wrote letters. I begged your secretary to get messages to you, but you were always too busy, always in meetings, always away on business trips." The bitterness in her voice cut like a knife. "And then suddenly all my calls were blocked. My letters came back unopened. Your lawyer told me you wanted no contact." Ethan's head spun. "I never got any messages. I never told anyone to block you." "Right," Lena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Just like you never got my messages about being pregnant, about the complications, about the twins being born, early while you were closing that deal in Tokyo." The children were coming back now, chattering happily among themselves. Lena grabbed her coat. "Emma, Michael, Daniel, we're leaving," she called out. "Emma, Michael, Daniel." His children had names. His daughter and sons had names. "Lena, please," he reached for her arm, but she jerked away. "I've spent 10 years protecting them," she said quietly. "Don't make me regret bringing them here tonight." "But they're my kids too." "No, Ethan, they're mine. You lost any right to them when you chose your empire over your family." She gathered the children who were looking confused by the tension. "Stay away from us, I mean it." Ethan stood frozen as Lena hurried the children toward the exit. Emma looked back over her shoulder, her green eyes, his eyes, wide with curiosity. Then they were gone, leaving Ethan alone with 1,000 questions, and a heart that felt like it was being torn apart. He barely noticed Jack approaching, barely heard his concerned questions. His mind was racing. Someone had blocked Lena's messages. Someone had made sure he never knew about his children. Someone had stolen 10 years of fatherhood from him, and he was going to find out who. Back at his penthouse, Ethan paced like a caged animal. His phone lay on the coffee table, open to a photo he'd managed to snap discreetly at the restaurant. Emma, Michael, and Daniel. His children. Their names played like a mantra in his head. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Sam, it's Ethan Sinclair. I need you to find everything you can about Lena Morrison. And I mean everything. Where she lives, where she works, where the kids go to school." He paused. "Yes, kids, my kids, and Sam. I need to know who in my company might have blocked her attempts to contact me 10 years ago. Someone betrayed me, and I'm going to find out who." As he hung up, his eyes fell on a photo on his bookshelf. Him and Caroline at some charity gala, both smiling perfect, empty smiles. His comfortable, convenient life suddenly felt like a prison. He had children, a family he never knew about. And nothing, not his empire, not his girlfriend, not even Lena's warnings, would keep him from them now. Tomorrow he would begin unraveling the mystery of what happened 10 years ago. Tomorrow he would start fighting for his children, but tonight he sat in his darkened living room, staring at their photo until his vision blurred with tears, mourning all the birthdays he'd missed, all the first steps he hadn't seen, all the bedtime stories he hadn't read. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm so sorry, but I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere." Caroline Norton stood at the window of her Manhattan apartment, cell phone pressed to her ear. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against the glass as she listened to the voice on the other end. "He saw them tonight," she said quietly. "At Le Cirque, yes, all of them." She paused, listening. "No, I don't know how much Lena told him, but he's furious." The morning sun was just starting to peek over the city skyline when Ethan arrived at his office. He hadn't slept at all, spending the night looking at old photos of him and Lena, searching for signs he should have seen. Had she tried to tell him about the pregnancy? Had he really been so blind? His secretary, Martha, looked surprised to see him so early. "Mr. Sinclair, I wasn't expecting you until the board meeting at 10. Martha, how long have you worked for me?" "Almost 12 years, sir." "So you were here when Lena and I divorced?" Martha's face went pale. She suddenly became very interested in straightening papers on her desk. "Yes, sir." "Did she ever try to contact me, leave messages, send letters?" I think you should talk to Ms. Norton about that, sir. She handled all your personal matters back then." Ethan felt his stomach drop. Caroline. She had been his personal assistant before they started dating, back when Lena was still his wife. She had handled all his calls, his mail, his schedule. "Get me every piece of correspondence from 10 years ago," he ordered. "Everything, and cancel my meetings for today." His office, Ethan started digging. He pulled up old emails, phone records, anything he could find. Hours passed as he searched, until finally, buried in an old email folder, he found something that made his blood run cold. It was an email from Caroline to the company's IT department. "Please block all incoming calls and emails from Lena Morrison, as per Mr. Sinclair's request." But he had never made that request. His phone buzzed. It was Sam, his investigator. "What did you find?" "You're not going to like this, boss. Lena lives in Brooklyn. She's a teacher at PS 183. The kids, Emma's 9, the twins just turned 7. She tried to sue for child support when they were born, but the paperwork mysteriously disappeared from the court records." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. "What else?" "There's more. Someone's been watching them. Professional surveillance. I found payments from a shell company linked to who?" "Caroline Norton." The phone nearly cracked in Ethan's grip. Caroline, his girlfriend, the woman he trusted. She had known about his children all along. He was about to call her when Martha burst into his office. "Sir, you need to see this. Ms. Morrison is here." Ethan rushed to the reception area. Lena stood there, looking both angry and frightened. "What did you do?" she demanded. "What are you talking about? Don't play innocent. This morning a lawyer showed up at my door with custody papers. You're suing for joint custody? After 10 years? "I haven't filed any custody papers," Ethan said, confused. "I've been here all morning." "Then explain this." She thrust the papers at him. His eyes scanned the document. It was a custody suit, all right, filed that morning in his name. But he hadn't filed it. "This isn't right," he muttered. "I didn't do this. Just like you didn't block my calls, didn't return my letters, didn't respond when I begged you to come when the twins were born 2 months early." Her words hit him like physical blows. "Lena, please. Someone's been working against us both. Against our family." "Our family?" She laughed bitterly. "We stopped being a family when you chose your company over us. Do you know what it was like? Being pregnant, alone, trying to reach you. Having your secretary tell me you were too busy. Getting served with divorce papers while I was on bed rest. I never sent divorce papers." "Right. Just like you never got my messages." She wiped angry tears from her eyes. "The kids have school plays next week. Emma's playing the lead. The twins have their first baseball game, but you don't know any of that, do you? Because you weren't there, you've never been there. But I want to be now. Please, Lena. Someone kept us apart. Someone's still trying to keep us apart." Before she could respond, the elevator doors opened. Caroline stepped out, freezing when she saw them. "Ethan, what's she doing here?" The look that passed between Caroline and Lena spoke volumes. Recognition, fear, hatred. "You," Lena whispered. "It was you all along." Caroline's face hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about." But Ethan saw it now, the guilt in Caroline's eyes, the way she couldn't quite look at him. "You knew," he said. "You knew about my children." "Everything I did for you," Caroline said. "You were building an empire. You didn't need the distraction of a wife who didn't understand your dreams, or children who would take you away from your work." "Take me away?" Ethan's voice shook with rage. "They're my children." "And now they have a good life," Caroline snapped. "Without you complicating things, I made sure of that." The silence that followed her words was deafening. Lena's hands trembled as she grabbed her purse. "I need to go. The kids will be home from school soon." "Lena, wait," Ethan called after her. "Please let me explain." She paused at the elevator. "There's nothing to explain, Ethan. You chose your life. We made ours without you." The doors closed, taking her away again. Ethan turned to Caroline, 10 years of lies standing between them. "Get out," he said quietly. "Get out of my office, my company, my life. And if you ever come near my family again—" "Your family?" Caroline laughed. "You don't have a family, Ethan. You have an empire. That's what you wanted, remember? That's what I helped you build." "No," he said. "What I built was a prison, and you were my jailer." As security escorted Caroline out, Ethan sat heavily in his chair. On his desk, the custody papers Caroline had filed mocked him. She had tried one last time to control his life, to keep him from his children, but not anymore. He picked up his phone. "Sam, I need everything you can find on Caroline." "Norton, every dirty deal, every secret, every lie. She stole 10 years with my children from me. Now I'm going to make sure she never hurts my family again." As the sun set over Manhattan, Ethan looked at the family photo from the restaurant again. Somewhere in Brooklyn, his children were having dinner, doing homework, living their lives. Lives he should have been part of. "I'm coming," he whispered to their images. "Whatever it takes, I'm coming." Emma Sinclair sat at her desk, carefully coloring the poster for her school play. Her long dark hair fell over her face as she worked, just like her mother's, but her determined expression, the way she pursed her lips in concentration, was all. "Hythan, Emmy, dinner's ready," Lena called from the kitchen. The twins, Michael and Daniel, were already at the table, fighting over the last dinner roll. Lena smiled at their familiar squabble, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about seeing Ethan, about the custody papers, about Caroline Norton's smug face. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it." Emma jumped up, but Lena stopped her. "No, sweetie, I'll go." Through the peephole, she saw Ethan standing there, still in his business suit. Her heart raced. "Kids, go to your rooms," she said quickly. "But Mom," We're eating, Daniel protested. Now please. Once they were gone, she opened the door. I told you to stay away. I found proof, Ethan said, holding up a stack of papers. Caroline blocked everything. Letters, calls, emails. She even paid people at the courthouse to lose the child support paperwork. That doesn't change anything. She filed those custody papers this morning to cause trouble, to turn you against me even more. He ran a hand through his hair. Lena, she's been having you watched for years, making sure I never found out about the kids. Lena's face went pale. What? Professional surveillance. Paid for through shell companies. She knew everything, where you lived, where the kids went to school. She kept it all from me. From upstairs came the sound of children arguing, then laughter. Ethan's eyes filled with tears at the sound. Please, he whispered, just let me meet them, let me explain. Explain what? That your girlfriend kept you from knowing about your own children for 10 years. Ex-girlfriend, he corrected. I fired her today, and I've got my lawyers building a case against her. Lena hesitated. For 10 years she'd believed Ethan had abandoned them, had chosen his company over their family. Finding out it was all Caroline's doing, it changed things. But did it change? Enough? Mom? Emma's voice came from the stairs. Who's at the door? Lena turned. Emma stood there, still holding her poster. Her green eyes, Ethan's eyes, widened as she looked at the stranger. You're the man from the restaurant, she said. The one who made Mom cry. Ethan's breath caught. Yes. I'm sorry about that. Emma came down the stairs slowly. Why did you make her cry? Emma, go back upstairs, Lena said, but Emma stood her ground. Are you my dad? The question hung in the air like a thundercloud. Ethan looked at Lena, silently pleading. Yes, Lena finally said. He is. Cool. Emma smiled, showing off a missing front tooth. Want to see my play poster? I'm the lead. Before Lena could stop her, Emma had grabbed Ethan's hand and was pulling him inside. It's Snow White. I have to kiss a boy, which is gross, but Mum says it's just pretend, so it's okay. Ethan let himself be led to the kitchen table where Emma's poster lay. His eyes took in every detail of his daughter's artwork, like he was trying to memorize it. Hemi, who are you talking to? Two identical heads poked around the corner. The twins froze when they saw Ethan. That's our dad, Emma announced proudly. He's going to look at my poster. Michael and Daniel exchanged looks. Then, with the simple acceptance of 7-year-olds, they shrugged. Do you like baseball? Daniel asked. We have a game next week, Michael added. Yes, I love baseball, Ethan managed. Cool. Want to see our gloves? Before anyone could respond, the twins disappeared upstairs, returning moments later with their baseball gear. Soon, Ethan was sitting on the living room floor, showing them how to break in a new glove while Emma chatted about her play. Lena watched from the doorway, her heart aching. This was what she'd wanted 10 years ago. What? Caroline Norton had stolen from them. Mum, can Dad come to my play? Emma asked. And to the twins' game. Lena met Ethan's eyes. She saw the same pain there, the same regret. We'll see, sweetie. Later, after the kids were in bed, Ethan and Lena sat at the kitchen table. The custody papers lay between them. I'll have these withdrawn first thing tomorrow, Ethan said. I don't want to force anything, I just want a chance. They like you, Lena said softly. They're amazing. You did an incredible job with them. It wasn't easy. Teaching salary doesn't go far in New York. Let me help, please. Not just money, I want to be here. For games and plays and everything else. Lena was quiet for a long moment. Caroline really kept everything from you? Ethan pulled out his phone, showing her the emails he'd found, the surveillance reports, the payments to courthouse clerks. She thought she was protecting my empire, he said bitterly. All she did was steal my family. And now I'm going to make it right if you'll let me. Outside, a car alarm went off, making them both jump. Through the window, Lena caught a glimpse of a dark sedan pulling away from the curb. The surveillance, she said. You really think she's still watching? Probably. Caroline doesn't give up easily. Ethan's jaw tightened. But neither do I, not anymore. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a text from Sam. Found something big. Caroline's been embezzling company funds for years, millions hidden in offshore accounts. Ethan showed Lena the message. I'm going to take her down, he said. Make her pay for every moment she stole from us. Us? The kids, you, our family. He stood up. I know I can't just walk back into your lives, but I want to try. Please, Lena, give me a chance to be the father they deserve. Lena thought about Emma's smile when she showed Ethan her poster, about the twins' excitement over baseball, about 10 years of wondering why the man she loved had abandoned them. One chance, she said finally. But if you hurt them... Never, Ethan promised. I've missed too much already. I'm not missing anything else. As he left that night, Emma's poster tucked carefully under his arm, neither of them noticed the camera, lens glinting from the dark sedan across the street. Inside, a man spoke quietly into his phone. Miss Norton. They were together for hours. The kids, too. Yes, I got pictures. No, he didn't see me. What do you want me to do now? In her luxury apartment, Caroline Norton gripped her phone tightly. Keep watching, she ordered. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Caroline paced in her penthouse office, surrounded by surveillance photos of Ethan with Lena and the children. Her perfectly manicured nails drummed against her desk as she listened to her private investigator's report. He's been there every day this week, the man said. Baseball practice with the boys, helping the girl with her play lines. He's even having dinner with them. And Lena, how is she responding? She's warming up to him. They talk a lot after the kids go to bed. Caroline slammed her hand on the desk. Everything she'd worked for was falling apart. 10 years of carefully orchestrated separation, gone in a matter of days. Her phone buzzed, a text from her contact at Sinclair Enterprises. Board meeting tomorrow. Ethan's presenting evidence of financial misconduct. You're the target. She needed to act fast. Across town. Ethan sat in the bleachers, watching the twins' baseball practice. Emma sat beside him, working on her homework while occasionally looking up to cheer for her brothers. Dad, she said, the word still new and wonderful to his ears. Are you and Mom getting back together? Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. It's complicated, sweetheart. Because of that mean lady from your office? You know about her. Emma nodded. I heard Mom talking on the phone. She said that lady kept all Mom's letters from you. That's really mean. Before Ethan could respond, his phone rang. It was Sam. Boss, we've got trouble. Someone's trying to access your private accounts. They're transferring funds offshore. Ethan's blood ran cold. Caroline? Has to be. She's moving fast. Millions already gone. Stop it. Now. Working on it. But that's not all. She's leaked documents to the press. Old ones making it look like you knew about the kids all along. Like you abandoned them on purpose. Ethan looked at Emma happily coloring in her notebook, then at the twins running bases. He'd only just found them. He couldn't lose them again. Get the legal team ready, he ordered. And call Lena. She needs to know what's coming. That evening, Lena's small house was tense. The kids were in bed, and Ethan and Lena sat at the kitchen table surrounded by newspaper articles and online printouts. Billionaire's secret family. The truth about Ethan Sinclair's abandoned children, Lena read from one headline. She's trying to turn this around on you. She's desperate. The board meeting tomorrow, I have proof she's been stealing from the company for years. This is her way of fighting back. By hurting the kids, they'll see these stories, Ethan. Their friends. At school will see them. I won't let her get away with this, Ethan promised. I've already called the major outlets telling our side, the real story. Lena's phone buzzed. Her face went pale as she read the message. She's not just going after you. The school board just got an anonymous tip about irregularities in my teaching credentials. They're suspending me pending an investigation. She can't do this. She already has. Without my job... Lena's voice broke. I can barely make ends meet as it is. Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. After a moment's hesitation, she let him. Move in with me, he said suddenly. What? All of you. I have the penthouse. It's secure. Caroline won't be able to get to you there. Ethan, just until this is over. Please, I need to know you're all safe. Before Lena could answer, Emma's voice came from the stairs. "Mom? Dad? Why are you still up?" They turned to find all three kids in their pajamas, looking worried. "Is something wrong?" Daniel asked. "Are we in trouble?" Michael added. Ethan and Lena exchanged looks. How much should they tell them? "Remember that mean lady I told you about?" Emma said to her brothers. "I bet she's causing trouble again. Sometimes kids saw things more clearly than adults." "Yes, sweetheart," Lena said. "She is, but your dad and I are handling it." "Is that why Tommy at school said his mom read about us in the newspaper?" Daniel asked. Ethan felt sick. It was already starting. "Listen," he said, gathering the kids close. "Some people might say some not nice things about our family, but none of it matters. What matters is that I love you, all of you. And I'm not going anywhere. Promise?" Emma asked. "Promise." Later that night, after getting the kids back to bed, Ethan and Lena sat on the porch swing. The same dark sedan was parked across the street, Caroline's spy watching their every move. "Okay," Lena said finally. "Okay, what?" "Okay, we'll move in with you, but just until this is over." Ethan felt hope surge in his chest. "I'll have security teams here first thing tomorrow to help with the move." The kids will be excited. They've never lived in a penthouse before. "I'll make sure they have everything they need, everything they should have had all along." Lena looked at him in the darkness. "You really mean that, don't you? I've missed so much. First steps, first words, first days of school. I can't change that, but I can be here now for all of you." Inside, Emma's play poster hung on the fridge, next to the twins' baseball schedule. Simple things, normal things, that had been denied to him for so long. His phone buzzed again, another message from Sam. "Caroline's been busy. She's calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, before yours. She's going to try to discredit me to the board," Ethan said. "Turn them against me before I can present the evidence against her." "What are you going to do?" Ethan smiled grimly. "I'm going to tell them the truth, all of it. How she kept me from my family, how she stole company money, everything. And if they don't believe you, then I'll lose the company." He looked at her. "But I won't lose my family. Not again." Across the street, the man in the sedan picked up his phone. "Ms. Norton, they're planning something, moving the family to his penthouse." Caroline's voice was ice. "Then we move tonight. Get the team ready. If Ethan wants a war, I'll give him one." In the quiet Brooklyn street, the porch swing creaked gently as Ethan and Lena sat together, unaware that their moment of peace was about to shatter. Tomorrow would bring either victory or ruin, but tonight they had this moment. This chance to be the family they should have been all along. The morning sun hadn't yet risen when the moving trucks arrived at Lena's house. Ethan supervised as security teams loaded boxes, while the kids watched in excitement from the front steps. "Will I have my own room?" Emma asked, clutching her favorite stuffed unicorn. "Each of you will," Ethan promised. "And wait until you see the view." But their excitement was cut short by the arrival of several black SUVs. Men in suits emerged, led by Richard Bennett, the head of Sinclair Enterprises Board of Directors. "Ethan," Richard called out, "we need to talk." "I'm busy, Richard. The board meeting isn't until 9. "The meeting's over. It happened an hour ago." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What?" Caroline presented some very disturbing evidence. Financial irregularities, all traced back to your personal accounts. Offshore transfers, shell companies, years of manipulation. "That's impossible. She's the one who's been stealing." "She has documentation, Ethan. Your signatures, your authorizations. They're forged." Richard looked at the moving trucks, then at the children. "She also shared your personal situation. The board feels your judgment has been compromised. We've voted to suspend you pending investigation. You can't do this. Security teams are already at your office and your penthouse." Lena stepped forward. "What does that mean?" "It means," Caroline's voice cut through the morning air as she emerged from one of the SUVs, "that Ethan no longer has access to company properties, including his residence." Emma pressed closer to Ethan's side. "Dad, what's happening?" Caroline's eyes narrowed at the word Dad. "Oh, how sweet. Playing happy families. Tell me, Ethan, does your daughter know you chose your company over her? That you signed those divorce papers without a second thought?" You forged those papers. Ethan's voice shook with rage. Prove it. Caroline smiled coldly. Oh wait, you can't. Because every shred of evidence shows you knew about these children all along. That you abandoned them. Just like you're about to lose everything else. Get inside, Lena whispered to the kids. Go. Pack your backpacks for school. Once the children were gone, she turned to Caroline. You won't get away with this. I already have. The board believes every word. The press will too. Poor Caroline Norton, loyally trying to protect the company from a man who abandoned his own children. We have proof, Ethan said. The surveillance reports, the blocked messages. Proof? You mean these? Caroline held up a stack of papers, then slowly began tearing them to pieces. Amazing how evidence can just disappear. Richard shifted uncomfortably. Ethan, you need to come with us. The authorities want to question you about the financial irregularities. This is insane. She's setting me up. Dad? Emma's voice came from the doorway. She and the twins stood there, backpacks in hand, watching the scene with wide eyes. Everything's okay, sweetheart. Ethan tried to sound calm. Just a mix-up at work. Is the mean lady trying to take you away from us again? Emma's voice trembled. Caroline laughed. Smart girl, but I didn't take him away the first time. He left all on his own. That's not true, Michael spoke up. Our dad wouldn't do that. Your dad is a fraud, Caroline snapped, and soon everyone will know it. That's enough. Lena stepped between Caroline and the children. You've done enough damage. But Caroline wasn't finished. The press is already running the story. By tonight, everyone will know how Ethan Sinclair abandoned his pregnant wife, hid his children's existence, and embezzled millions. Your little family reunion is over. No, Emma said suddenly, her voice strong despite her tears. You're the bad guy, like in my play, but the bad guy never wins in the end. Caroline's face twisted with rage. You spoiled little... Don't. Ethan's voice was deadly quiet. Don't you dare speak to my daughter. Your daughter, please. A week ago you didn't even know she existed. Because of you. You kept them from me, stole 10 years of their lives, my life. I did what was necessary. The company doesn't matter, Ethan shouted. My family matters. A police car turned onto the street, lights flashing. Right on time, Caroline smiled. The fraud squad is very interested in those offshore accounts. Ethan, this isn't over, he promised. Oh, but it is. You're about to lose everything, your company, your reputation, your freedom, and this time, I made sure there's no coming back. As the police car stopped in front of the house, Emma suddenly ran inside. She returned moments later with her school backpack. Here, she thrust a folder at Richard Bennett. Look, Emma, honey, now's not the time, Lena started. No, Mom, look. Emma pulled out papers from the folder. Remember when I had to do that? Family tree project. I found these in the attic. They were letters, dozens of them, all from Lena to Ethan, dated 10 years ago. Letters about the pregnancy, about complications, about the births. Letters that had been returned unopened with notes in Caroline's handwriting marking them "Return to sender." Richard Bennett took the letters, his face growing darker as he read. There's more, Emma said. Mom keeps everything. Show them, Mom. Lena hesitated, then ran inside. She returned with a worn shoebox. Inside were hospital records, court documents, even surveillance photos, all with Caroline's fingerprints on them. I kept it all, Lena said quietly. Everything. I thought someday Ethan might want to know the truth. Caroline's smug smile faltered. Those could be fakes. The postmarks are real, Richard said, examining the letters. And this handwriting... Caroline, did you really think we wouldn't recognize your signature on these return orders? The police. Officers approached, but instead of going to Ethan, they turned to Caroline. Ms. Norton once said, we'd like you to come with us. We have some questions about those financial transactions you reported. This is ridiculous. I was protecting the company by forging documents, stealing money, keeping a father from his children? Richard's voice was cold. The board will be very interested in this evidence. As the police led Caroline away, Emma ran to Ethan, wrapping her arms around his waist. The twins followed, and soon Lena joined. Them? See? Emma said. I told you the bad guy never wins. Ethan held his family close, watching as Caroline was placed in the police car. She had tried to destroy everything he loved, but in the end, a 9-year-old girl's school project had brought down her entire scheme. "Dad?" Daniel tugged at his sleeve. "Does this mean we still get to live in the penthouse?" Ethan laughed through his tears. "Yes, buddy, we're going home, all of us." As the sun finally rose over Brooklyn, the moving trucks resumed loading. Richard Bennett promised a full investigation into Caroline's actions. And somewhere in Emma's backpack, a family tree project showed the truth that no amount of lies could hide. That love finds a way even after 10 years apart. The penthouse felt different with children's laughter echoing through its halls. Emma had claimed the room with the best view of Central Park, while the twins chose connecting rooms they could turn into their secret headquarters. Lena stood in the kitchen, watching Ethan help the kids unpack. It still felt surreal, going from their modest Brooklyn home to this luxury apartment, from single mother to co-parent in just a few days. "Mom," Emma called out, "Dad says we can paint my room any color I want." "Any color except black," Ethan corrected, carrying another box. "We talked about this," the doorman called up. "Mr. Sinclair, there's a Ms. Rodriguez here from Child Services." Lena's heart stopped. Ethan squeezed her hand. "It's okay, we knew this was coming." The social worker was a stern-looking woman in her 50s. "I'm here about some concerning reports we've received." "From Caroline Norton, I assume?" Ethan's voice was tight, among others. "There are allegations of parental abandonment, financial manipulation, and unstable living conditions." "All lies," Lena said. "We have proof. Nevertheless, I need to assess the situation." Ms. Rodriguez looked around the penthouse. "Children, could you come here, please?" Emma came first, followed by the twins. They stood close to their parents, sensing the tension. "I'd like to speak with each of you, privately." The next hour was torture. Ms. Rodriguez interviewed each child separately in Emma's room while Ethan and Lena waited anxiously. Finally, Emma emerged from her last interview, running to hug her parents. She asked, "Lots of questions about you, Dad," she said. "About where you were before. I told her about the mean lady who kept your letters from Mom." Ms. Rodriguez appeared, her expression unreadable. "I've reviewed the situation, including the evidence, about Ms. Norton's interference. And?" Lena's voice shook. "The children seem well-adjusted and happy. They speak very positively about both parents and understand the circumstances of their separation." She closed her notebook. "I see no reason for concern at this time." The relief in the room was palpable. "However," she continued, "given the high-profile nature of this case and Ms. Norton's allegations, there will be follow-up visits." After she left, Ethan pulled Lena into a hug. The kids joined in, making it a family embrace. "See," Emma said, "I told you everything would be okay." The moment was interrupted by Ethan's phone. It was Sam. "Boss, you need to see this. Caroline's been released on bail." Before Ethan could respond, the TV in the living room switched on automatically. Something about the smart home system Caroline had installed. Her face filled the screen. "Hello, Ethan," a recorded message played. "Surprised? Did you really think a few old letters would stop me? I built your empire. I controlled your life for 10 years. Did you think I wouldn't have a backup plan?" The kids huddled closer to their parents. "By now you've probably dealt with Child Services. Cute, but that was just the beginning. Check your accounts, Ethan, all of them." Ethan grabbed his laptop. His hands shook as he logged in. "Everything's gone," he whispered. "She's wiped out every account." "Not just yours," Caroline's recording continued. "Check the company accounts. Every penny transferred to untraceable offshore accounts. Your board of directors is probably calling an emergency meeting right now." Right on cue, Ethan's phone exploded with messages. "You took my life's work from me." Caroline's voice was cold. "Now I'm taking everything from you. The money, the company, your reputation. By the time I'm done, those children you suddenly care so much about will be ashamed to carry your name." The screen went black. "Dad?" Daniel's voice was small. "What's going to happen?" Ethan looked at his family. The family he'd only just found, the family Caroline was trying to destroy. "Nothing's going to happen," he said firmly. We're together now, that's all that matters. But the money, Lena started, is just money. I built one fortune, I can build another. What I can't replace is this, us, our family. Emma hugged him tight. We can share my piggy bank, Dad. Ethan laughed despite everything. Thanks, sweetheart. His phone rang again. Richard Bennett. Ethan, it's a disaster. Every account, every investment, everything's gone. The board is meeting in an hour. I'll be there. There's more. Caroline, she's gone. Private jet to a non-extradition country. She's been planning this for months. After he hung up, Ethan looked at Lena. I have to go. We'll come with you, she said. No, it's going to get ugly. The press will be there. We're family, Emma declared. Like in my play, when the witch tries to hurt Snow White, her family stands together. Lena smiled. She's right. We've spent 10 years apart. We faced this together. They rode to Sinclair Enterprises. Reporters swarmed the car. Through the tinted windows, they could see camera flashes, microphones, people shouting questions. Remember, Ethan said, no matter what happens in there, no matter what Caroline's done, we have what matters most. Emma squeezed his hand. Family. The twins nodded. Family. Lena's eyes met his. Family. The car door opened to a storm of cameras and questions. But for the first time in 10 years, Ethan Sinclair walked into his company not as a lonely billionaire, but as a father and a man who had finally found what truly mattered. Behind them, on every TV screen in the lobby, Caroline's face appeared, again. Her message was clear. This was just the beginning. The boardroom of Sinclair Enterprises was packed. Directors whispered among themselves as Ethan entered with his family. Emma held his hand tight while the twins stayed close to Lena. Mr. Sinclair, Richard Bennett stood. The situation is grave. Every account has been drained. Caroline Norton has disappeared with billions. Not disappeared, Ethan said, nodding to the TV screens where Caroline's face still played on loop. She wants us to know exactly what she's doing. The company is ruined, one director said. Stock prices are plummeting. You don't understand, another added. She didn't just take the money, she's encrypted every system, locked us out of everything. We're dead in the water. Emma tugged at Ethan's sleeve. Dad, remember what you told me about computers? About backdoors? The room fell silent. What do you mean, sweetheart? You said every system has a back door, like when I forgot my password for my school tablet. Ethan's eyes widened. He pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Sam, check Caroline's old computer, the one from when she first started working here. Why? Because Caroline never threw anything away. She kept everything, documented everything, including, I bet, her original system passwords. The next hour was tense. Sam and the IT team dug through storage, finally locating Caroline's old equipment. Found it, Sam's voice crackled over the speakerphone. A password file encrypted but... Use the date, Emma said suddenly. What? The mean lady's birthday. Mom found it in those old letters. She always used it for everything. Sam typed quickly. It worked! We're in! Screens around the room flickered to life. Numbers scrolled past. Account numbers, transaction records, everything Caroline had tried to hide. She didn't just steal from the company, Richard said, examining the data. She's been embezzling for years. Small amounts, building up offshore accounts. And now we can trace them, Ethan smiled. Every penny. His phone buzzed, another message from Caroline. But this time, when her face appeared on screen, she looked worried. Clever girl, she sneered at Emma. But you're still too late. The money's gone, transferred through 100 different accounts. You'll never find it all. We don't need to, Ethan said to the screen. We just need to find you. Caroline's image flickered. You think you've won? This was just phase 1. Wait until the press gets the real story about your perfect little family. What real story? Lena demanded. About how you trapped Ethan with a pregnancy. About how those children might not even be his. The twins gasped. Emma's grip on Ethan's hand tightened. DNA tests, Caroline smirked. I had them done years ago. Would you like to know the results? Stop it, Lena's voice shook. The kid should know the truth about their gold-digging mother who... Found it, Sam's voice cut through. The transfers. They all route through a bank in Singapore, under the name Norton Holdings. Caroline's face paled. And look at this, Richard pointed to his screen. Every transaction, every document, she kept copies of everything, including proof she forged Ethan's signature on those divorce papers. You always did love your records, Caroline, Ethan said. Your need to control everything, document everything. It's what brought you down. You have nothing, Caroline spat. We have everything. The surveillance records, the forged documents, the embezzlement records. It's over. Dad? Emma spoke up. Can I say something? Caroline laughed. What could you possibly... I know you're not really mean, Emma said. You're just scared. Like the witch in my play, she was mean because she was lonely. Don't you dare try to analyze me, you little... She's right, Ethan said softly. You did all this because you were afraid of losing control, of being alone. Interpol is on the line, Sam announced. They've tracked her location. Caroline's image started to break up. This isn't over, Ethan. Those children are mine, Ethan said firmly, in every way that matters, and no amount of lies can change that. The screen went black. In the silence, that followed, Emma hugged Ethan tight. I knew you'd figure it out, Dad. We figured it out together, sweetheart. He looked at the board members. All the money can be traced. The company will recover. And Caroline, Richard asked, will face justice for everything she's done. Later that night, back at the penthouse, the family sat together eating pizza, a celebration, Emma insisted, of beating the bad guy. Dad, Daniel asked between bites, what that lady said about the DNA tests doesn't matter, Ethan said firmly. You're my children. Nothing can change that. But, no buts. Family isn't just about DNA. It's about love, about being there. For each other, like how Emma helped save the company. Michael grinned, exactly like that. Lena watched them, her eyes filling with tears. After 10 years of struggling alone, of wondering why Ethan had abandoned them, here they were, a real family. Mom? Emma noticed her tears. Are you okay? I'm perfect, sweetheart. She smiled. Everything's perfect. Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance. Somewhere in the world, Caroline Norton was still running, but in the penthouse, surrounded by the love of the family he'd almost lost, Ethan Sinclair had never felt richer. 3 days after Caroline's disappearance, Emma's school play was in full swing. Ethan sat in the front row, video camera in hand, watching his daughter shine as Snow White. The twins fidgeted beside him while Lena wiped tears from her eyes. Backstage after the show, Emma ran to them in her costume, face glowing with excitement. Did you record it? Every second, Ethan promised, hugging her tight. His phone buzzed. Sam's message was brief. Found her. Singapore police had traced Caroline to a luxury hotel. But when they arrived, she was already gone, leaving behind only a laptop with another recorded message. Congratulations on the play, Emma. Caroline's face smiled coldly from the screen. Such a sweet family moment. Shame it has to end. Ethan pulled Emma closer. You think you've won, don't you? Found the money, saved the company, playing happy families. Caroline laughed. But I've had 10 years to plan this, Ethan. 10 years to learn every secret, every weakness. What's she talking about? Lena whispered. Did you ever wonder why I chose you, Ethan? Why, out of all the ambitious executives, I picked you to manipulate? Caroline's eyes gleamed. Ask your mother about Thomas Morrison. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. Thomas Morrison, his father's name. Mom? Emma looked up at him. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. But his hands were shaking. Back at the penthouse after the kids were in bed, Ethan called his mother. Thomas Morrison, he said without preamble. Caroline mentioned him. Who is he? Margaret Sinclair's sharp intake of breath was answer enough. Your father wasn't James Sinclair, was he? How did she find out? Margaret's voice trembled. No, one knew. I made sure no one knew. Who was he? A mistake, a young executive at the company. When I found out I was pregnant, your father, James, he forgave me, raised you as his own. Thomas Morrison, Ethan repeated. Caroline's father. The silence on the phone was deafening. She's my sister, he whispered. My half-sister. I'm so sorry, Margaret sobbed. I never meant... Lena found him later on the balcony staring at the city lights. The woman who kept me from my children, he said hollowly. The woman who tried to destroy our family. She's my sister. It doesn't change anything, doesn't it? She had every right to hate me. I got everything. The Sinclair name, the company, the fortune, while she chose to hurt innocent. Children, Lena finished. Your children. Nothing justifies that. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Caroline. How does it feel, brother? Her face was twisted with hatred. To know you stole everything that should have been mine. Father gave you everything, while I had to claw my way up from nothing. You could have told me, Ethan whispered. And what? Watch you play the noble big brother? No. I wanted you to suffer. Like I suffered watching you take my birthright. By keeping me from my children. They're innocent. No one's innocent, Caroline snarled. Except maybe them, your precious children, my niece and nephews. Something. In her voice changed. You know, Emma reminds me of myself at that age. So clever, so determined. The twins, they have our father's eyes. Stay away from them. Oh, brother dear, I'm closer than you think. The screen went black. At that moment, Emma screamed from upstairs. Ethan and Lena raced to her room. The balcony door was open, curtains billowing in the wind. On Emma's bed lay a single white rose and a note. Family reunion time. Come alone to where it all began, or the children will learn what it's like to grow up without a father. Just like we did. The twins burst in from their room. Emma, where's Emma? But Emma's bed was empty, and somewhere in the night, Caroline's laugh echoed like a witch's curse. Lena collapsed against Ethan, sobbing. The twins clung to them, terrified. I'll find her, Ethan promised. I'll bring her back. His phone buzzed one last time. A photo, Emma, sleeping peacefully in what looked like a hospital room. Where it all began, Caroline's message read. St. Luke's Hospital, where our father died alone while you lived in luxury. 1 hour, brother, come say goodbye to your daughter. Ethan looked at Lena, at their terrified sons. Everything he'd built, everything he'd found, hung by a thread. And somewhere in the city, a sister's revenge and a father's love were about to collide in a final, desperate showdown. St. Luke's Hospital loomed dark against the night sky. The same hospital where Ethan had lost his father. No, not his father. James Sinclair had been his father in every way that mattered, just as he was Emma's father, despite what Caroline claimed. Let me come with you, Lena begged. They'd left the twins with Sam, surrounded by security. She said alone. Ethan checked his watch. 40 minutes left. It's a trap. I know, but she has Emma. Inside, the hospital corridors were eerily quiet. A security guard nodded at him, one of Caroline's people, no doubt. The elevator took him to the 5th floor, the ICU where Thomas Morrison had died 15 years ago. Room 507, the same room where their father had taken his last breath. Emma lay on the hospital bed, still in her snow-white costume, apparently sleeping peacefully. Caroline stood by the window, a syringe in her hand. Just something to keep her quiet, she said, noticing his gaze. She's fine, for now. Let her go, Caroline. She's innocent. Like we were. Caroline turned, and for the first time, Ethan saw tears in her eyes. Did you know he used to watch you? Our father. Every Christmas, every birthday. He'd park outside. Your house watching you open presents. Play with your expensive toys. I didn't know. Of course not. You were too busy being the perfect Sinclair heir. While she laughed bitterly. I was the mistake. The secret daughter he visited once a year with an envelope of cash and a pat on the head. So this is revenge? Hurting my daughter because our father hurt you? No, this is justice. You got everything. His name, his money, his love. I got nothing. That's not true, a voice said from the doorway. You got his heart. Margaret Sinclair stood there, looking older than her years. Mother, Ethan breathed. Not my mother, Caroline spat. Just the woman who ruined everything. I loved him, Margaret said quietly. And he loved you, Caroline, more than you knew. Lies. Why do you think James promoted Ethan so quickly? Because Thomas threatened to reveal everything. unless his son got what he deserved. What about what I deserved? The company, Margaret continued. He left you his shares, all of them, in secret through shell companies. You didn't have to work your way up, Caroline. You already owned half of Sinclair Enterprises. Caroline's hand shook. No, you're lying. Check your father's old office behind the painting of the lake. His will, his letter to you, everything. Then why? Caroline looked lost. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because I was ashamed, Margaret admitted. Because James threatened to ruin Thomas's reputation if the truth came out. Because we were all too proud, too afraid of scandal. On the bed, Emma stirred. Daddy? I'm here, sweetheart. Ethan moved toward her, but Caroline raised the syringe. Don't. She's your niece, Caroline, Margaret said. Your family, the family Thomas wanted you to have. Family? Caroline laughed wildly. I don't have family. I have secrets and lies and years of watching others live the life I deserved. Then, take the company, Ethan said. It's yours anyway, apparently. Take it all. Just let Emma go. The company? Caroline's voice broke. I don't want the company. I want the years back. The father I never had. The brother who got everything while I got nothing. Not nothing. Emma's voice was small but clear. You got sad and mean like the witch in my play. Emma, honey, be quiet, Ethan pleaded. But Emma sat up, looking at Caroline with those green eyes, Thomas Morrison's eyes. In my play, the witch was mean because she was lonely, because she thought nobody loved her. But she was wrong. Caroline's hand trembled. You don't understand. I do. You're my aunt. That means you're family. And family should love each other. Love? Caroline whispered. Like how Dad loves us even though he didn't know us before. Like how Grandma loves Dad even though she made mistakes. Emma held out her hand. You can be part of our family for real this time. The syringe slipped from Caroline's fingers. She sank to her knees, sobs shaking her body. Emma slipped off the bed, still wobbly from whatever Caroline had given her, and hugged her aunt. After a moment's hesitation, Caroline hugged her back. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Ethan moved to them, gathering both his daughter and his sister in his arms. Margaret joined them, and for a moment 4 generations of secrets and lies and love came together in healing tears. Later, as police led Caroline away, gently, thanks to Margaret's intervention, Emma held her father's hand. Is Aunt Caroline going to jail? For a little while, but she's getting help. And when she's better, she can come to my next play? Ethan smiled through his tears. Maybe. If she wants to. Outside, Lena and the twins waited with Sam. As the family reunited in fierce hugs, Ethan looked back at the hospital. So much pain had lived in these walls. His father's death, Thomas Morrison's secrets, Caroline's broken heart. But tonight something had healed. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to start again. Let's go home, he said, holding his family close. And this time, home meant more than just a place. It meant truth, forgiveness, and the love that binds broken things together. 1 year. Later, the Sinclair penthouse buzzed with activity. Emma, now 10, supervised the party decorations with the authority of a seasoned event planner. The banner needs to be higher, she directed the twins, who balanced on chairs with thumbtacks. Aunt Caroline won't be able to see it otherwise. Lena watched from the kitchen, smiling as she finished the welcome home cake. After 12 months of therapy and rehabilitation, Caroline was finally coming home. Ethan adjusted his tie. No more Italian silk. Just a simple blue one Emma had picked out for him. The company was thriving under shared leadership now. He and Caroline had reorganized everything, bringing their father's dream of a family business full circle. They're here, Michael shouted from the window. Margaret arrived first, followed by Caroline. She looked different, softer somehow, the sharp edges smoothed by time and healing. Aunt Caroline. Emma ran to her, wrapping her in a fierce hug. The twins followed, nearly knocking them both over. Easy, boys, Caroline laughed. I'm not as steady as I used to be. Come see what we did. Emma pulled her toward the living room. A huge banner hung across the windows. Welcome home, Aunt Caroline. Beneath it, a table displayed framed photos, old ones of Thomas Morrison, New ones of the whole family at prison visits, at therapy sessions, rebuilding bridges one moment at a time. "We saved you all the newspaper articles," Daniel announced, proudly, about how you helped catch the bad guys at the company. After her arrest, Caroline had worked with authorities, exposing years of corporate corruption that went far beyond her own actions. Her testimony had helped clean up not just Sinclair Enterprises but half of Wall Street. "And look," Michael pointed to a photo of Caroline in the hospital with Emma, "from when you were sick and Emma made you feel better." "She saved me," Caroline said softly, touching the photo. "My little Snow White." "With a little help from her grandmother," Margaret added, squeezing Caroline's hand. They had formed an unlikely bond over the past year, united in their love for the children. "Cake time," Lena called from the kitchen. As they gathered around the table, Ethan looked at his family, all of it. His mother, who had finally found peace with her past. His sister, who had learned that love was stronger than revenge. His children, who had taught them all about forgiveness. And Lena, who had never given up on the power of family. "Speech," Emma demanded, chocolate frosting already on her chin. Ethan stood, but Caroline beat him to it. "A year ago, she," began, her voice trembling. "I thought family meant power, control, getting what you deserved." She looked at Emma. "But a very wise little girl taught me that family means love, second chances, forgiveness." "And cake," Daniel added helpfully. Everyone laughed. "And cake," Caroline agreed. "I spent 10 years keeping this family apart because I was angry about being left out of it. I never realized I was already part of it, through blood, through Thomas Morrison's love, through these amazing children." Emma hugged her aunt's waist. "And now you're really part of it. Forever." "Forever," Caroline promised. Later, as the sun set over Central Park, the family sat together watching old home movies, the ones Margaret had secretly kept of Thomas Morrison, watching young Ethan from afar. "He loved you both," Margaret said, quietly. So much it hurt him. On screen, a young Caroline appeared at a school play, her father in the back row, smiling proudly. "He was there," Caroline whispered. "Every performance, every graduation, he kept everything, programs, report cards, photos." "Like Mom does for us," Emma said wisely. "Like family does," Ethan corrected. The doorbell rang. Sam, arriving for the weekly family dinner. He had become part of their extended family too, his quiet strength a constant support through the hardest times. As they gathered around the dinner table, Ethan, Lena, the children, Margaret, Caroline and Sam, Emma raised her glass of milk. "To family," she said solemnly. "The one we were born with and the one we found." "To family," they echoed. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. Somewhere out there, Thomas Morrison's spirit smiled down on his children. Finally together, finally whole. And in the penthouse, surrounded by love and forgiveness, the family he had never known became the family he had always dreamed of having. Emma snuggled between her father and her aunt, her snow-white costume still hanging proudly in her closet. A reminder that even the darkest curses could be broken by love. "Tell us the story again," the twins begged, "about how our family came together." Ethan looked at Caroline, who nodded. "Well," he began, "it all started one night at Le Cirque restaurant. And as the story unfolded once more, the past's sharp edges softened into memory and the future stretched before them, bright with promise and possibility. For in the end, it wasn't about money or power or revenge. It was about a little girl who believed in happy endings, a sister who found her way home, and a family that discovered that love, like Emma's favorite fairy tales, had the power to heal all wounds and write new stories. Together, they had learned that sometimes the longest journeys lead us right back home, to the hearts that beat, in time with our own, to the arms that hold us when we fall, to the love that transforms strangers into family. And that, after all, was the greatest wealth of all.